Yeah, we will start with core Java first. And in core Java, like, can you tell me what is the difference between array list and linked list? And what is better
Okay.
in which scenario?
Okay. See, array list is better when you want to when you have more read operations. Like when you want to retrieve the data, then you can use array list. When you want to like just insert the data and maintain it in an order, and there are not much read operations or retrieval operations, then we can go for linked list.
Okay, so apart from that, what is better in terms of searching anything?
Searching like in array list, searching is faster because we have already indexes, so we can search fastly. Whereas in linked list, searching is worse because if you want to search for the nth element, that is going to take complex time.
Okay, okay. So do you have some knowledge about Java 8?
No, I am recently trying to understand lambdas and functional interface. That's it. I still need to understand about streams and the functional programming. This functional programming, I still need to complete those concepts.
Okay, okay. So can you tell me a real world example of encapsulation?
Encapsulation, like whatever we use right now, like the classes and the object that we are using,
Hmm.
that is a real world example that we use in Java. Encapsulation is nothing but just wrapping up data into a single entity,
Hmm.
single unit. So that is done with the class. So in class, we have all the variables and all the methods that we require gathered in a single place that is called as class. And by giving it a memory, which is via object, we are using those, we are making use of those variables and methods.
Okay, okay. What are the different ways to create a string object?
Okay, ways to create a string object.
Mm-hmm.
We can uh, we can directly put like string s is equal to, and then we can directly give a string right there, and we can also use a new keyword. Using new also we can create a string.
Okay. Is there any other way?
Yeah, and so these are the two ways I know. Like one is with the string, like using new keyword, and another is directly assigning it. Just using double quotes, you directly assign it. I think that is called as literals.
Yeah, correct. Apart from
Yeah.
that, you can also create a string by using some methods of string buffer and string builder. So those methods,
Okay.
some methods are there. Those methods will return string. Like substring method is there. So substring, the return type of substring method is a string. So eventually you are creating a new string
Okay. So
by
even
using
that
the substring.
substring.
Yeah,
So that means the even the substring also will be created as a new object.
yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Substring is a method. So in substring you
Yeah.
will give the index number. Okay, for an existing string. So what it will do, it will create a new string and return to you.
Okay. I
Okay,
am understanding a little bit. Yes.
yeah. So what is mutable string?
Mutable.
Yeah,
Mutable.
can a string be mutable?
Uh, Mutable, like changing the mutable means changing the content. I
Yeah,
think strings are immutable.
yeah.
If you assign even a new string literal for it, it will just create a new reference for that. It will create a separate object for that, and then just create a reference for it. And the old object still exists there because the code thinks that these are some other strings or some other function might be using that string literal.
Okay. Yeah, correct. So, do you know how to use comparator?
No,
Why it is okay? Okay, fine. And
this comparator and comparable. I just saw like in one of your videos, I saw that question,
uh,
but I still did not understand it. I still did not go through the concept. Even one thing that is even in collection also there are something called as iterable. There is also yeah. I'm still
iterable.
going through those.
Okay, so iterable is an interface which is used in collection. So every collection is a part of iterable interface. Every collection
Yes,
is
yes, yes.
internally implementing iterable. So
Yeah.
and iterable has some methods like iterator
Okay.
or some other methods. So every collection can use those methods, iterator. So
Yeah.
you can understand it by simply saying that every collection means array list or linked list or anything. These collection are iterable. You can iterate them. You understood? You can iterate them means
Okay. Okay.
you can read the values from it. You can iterate them one by one. The whatever
Well,
values
yes.
these are
Yes.
having. So that's why they intentionally gave names of interface like this. Iterable means it can be iterable. It can be you can iterate the values of a particular thing. You understood?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So names are very
Yes.
helpful if you trying to understand the concept sometime. And coming
Okay.
to comparator and comparable, both are used to compare objects.
Okay,
Okay,
comparing the objects.
comparing the objects. So if you like want to sort the object, you can sort collection object. You can use comparable and comparator. Again, uh, if you like if you read about it, you will understand and how these are comparing these will pick the value uh, from from the objects, and there is some mechanism it uses like if values are equals. I can explain to you fully, but I'm not going into the details right now,
Yeah, yeah,
because it
yeah,
will take
yeah.
some time.
Yeah, right now we will as you said the kind of evaluation we will have a kind of evaluation,
Hmm.
and then we can discuss in any topics that
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah, fine. Do you know what is a stateless object? What do you understand by a object which is stateless?
Stateless. I'm no, I do not have any understanding on that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so what is concurrent hash map?
No, no, I don't have any idea.
Okay, no problem. And do you know what is hash table?
It has table. Um, as table like in general I know about hashing, but in Java I have not seen about either hash map or hash table in deep. But in a general idea I can tell about what this hashing or everything does. The hashing is generally we use hashing for fast retrieval.
Mm-hmm.
So we want our retrieval to be very fast. Only then we are going to use this hash. Internally, this hash table or hash map, they work on a principle called as hashing. So whenever we are giving an input, it goes through certain hash function. It may be any mathematical function. In basically we can use multiplication, division, something like that. But if you want to really implement, we can also implement like those kind of data structure with our own hash function also. So in such way, there will be a function, mathematical function. So whatever the output that function gives,
Hmm.
in that position, our element will be placed.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
in such a way, this hash table works.
hmm,
So if there are any collisions, if two elements are trying to get into the same position,
hmm.
it at that moment it will just create a linked list there, and it will go keep on saving that in that linked list.
Can we store null as a value in hash table?
Null value in hash table.
Yeah.
Uh, I am unable to think of it.
No problem.
I no, because I don't know.
No
We can
problem. No
either do it or
problem.
not. But as I think like in linked list, anyway, like the end will be null. I think even in linked list we can't do
No,
anything. Like
linked list is different from hash table. In hash table, you store not just value, a key also.
a key also, we will use a key also,
Hmm.
and the key supposed to be unique, uh, and maybe even if it is null key, and even I'm just trying to understand to
Hmm.
myself
Hmm.
that even if it is null, like how are we going to fetch something like that? That I'm unable to understand. So until I get the knowledge, I can't answer it.
No problem. No problem. So this hash table was introduced so that we can store key and value pair. So hash map also does the same thing, but it was introduced later. So hash table has some problems which hash map solves. So in hash table we don't have null keys. We can store
Okay,
null as a value, but we can't have null as a key. But in
okay,
hash map we can have null as a key also, but only a single time, because again if you have duplicate key, that you can't have duplicate
yeah,
keys in
it
hash
will
map.
not take anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is
no
the
duplicates
smaller
or no.
problem, but hash map was introduced to solve a bigger problem. Bigger problem means this hash table was synchronized. Okay,
Hash table.
hash
Okay,
table. So now we have a hash map which was non-synchronized, which
okay.
means
Yeah,
non-thread safe. Means
this is
multiple.
one I'm unable to understand.
Yeah.
I saw this on like vectors. In case of vector also, they say array list versus vector.
Hmm.
Array list is not thread safe, and vector is thread safe. And they say sometimes they use synchronized and not synchronized. This I am unable, like what is behind it, because I am not fully aware of threads
let
concept.
me let me
So
try let me try that. So thread was introduced to do things fast, because if we have a single problem to solve, one person is solving a single problem, that will take some time. So what we are doing, we are creating multiple threads, and those threads are solving that problem or solving that code piece of code. So multiple
okay,
threads are working on that piece of code, that it will be it will be very fast. If multiple threads are
okay,
working on the one thing, then that thing will complete in very fast. So
okay, very
that's why,
faster than traditional method.
yeah, so that's why threads were introduced. But threads have some problem. So suppose multiple threads are working on some collection, okay, array list or some anything, any collection. So what happens if multiple threads are working? That means one thread is updating value of a collection object, and then again some threads are reading the value of that collection on the same time. So then if
Okay.
value is not updated correctly, then there will be problem to read those values, because one thread
Yeah.
is updating some
The
value.
output will not be expected.
Yeah, correct. So so that is the problem with threads. So what we now
Okay.
have a solution, we have a synchronized way to work with threads. Like,
Okay.
so hash table was thread safe, means only one thread can access the hash table. So the problem with that is it will be very slow, because only one thread was working with hash table. That means the process was very slow. So now we have hash map in which multiple threads can work at the same time, but again it will come with some problem that the value can differ sometime, because one thread is updating the value and another thread is reading the value same time. So it can read the old value.
Yeah.
So
There is a possibility.
yeah, so again to solve that problem, concurrent hash map was introduced. So it will solve, what
Okay.
problem it will solve? Multiple threads can work on a map, but only one thread can read at a time. Sorry, only one thread can write the values at a time, and multiple threads can read the values. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
so the concept is very simple. One thing was creating some problem, so another thing was introduced. Then these things comes with some problems, so then another thing was introduced to solve those problems. So if
Okay.
you like
Okay.
read it fully, maybe I haven't explained it in that way, but if you read that, you will understand things easily. It's not that hard to understand.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so again, let me ask you another question. Uh, what is the super class of all the errors and exceptions?
Okay. I think exception is the class super class of all exceptions in Java.
Or what is the super class of exception itself?
Exception. Okay. 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 I read it somewhere. Throwable.
Yeah,
I think
throwable.
throwable is the class.
Yeah, so again, that initially I told you something like we create some class and interface with the suffix able. So this class is throwable. So whatever object you create of this class or the subclasses of this class will be throwable. So every exception is throwable. You throw the exception. You throw exception with throw keyword, and it may be your code can throw exception if you are doing something like not in particular way. It can throw exception, so that's why you keep the name throwable intentionally to understand a throwable kind of a thing.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so what is
So
the way to create a custom exception?
a custom exception is like it is created by using try catch blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So in a try block, we can write any code that we are thinking that it might give some exception, and then in a catch block, we can catch that exception. So these try catch blocks are basically used to for the smooth execution of the code.
Okay.
So it should not be ending abruptly. At the same time, it should not give any improper results. So these are kinds of checkpoints where you, whenever you think that some code might have some issue, then there we can use try catch blocks. And there is also one other block called as finally.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is also it is a what we say. It is also has some features like try catch, but it is of another use. So yeah, like in try and catch, the catch might work or not, because if we are writing certain exceptions, not like general exception, if we just put catch of exception E, then every exception is caught in that catch block. But if we put certain exceptions only
Mm-hmm.
in the catch block, and in try block, there is some kind of other exception which we are not handling there, then in such cases, as a preventive measure, we can have a finally block.
Okay.
And also when there are errors in a code, even it is a good practice, like if we use finally, and that is also used generally to end the database connections or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And to write logs or something. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, to write the logs also.
Okay.
And moreover, even if we are writing regarding the logs, like even if we are not writing like the finally logs in the finally block also, once we go to the log file, we can understand where it stopped, right?
Hmm. Correct.
So I don't think we specifically need to use finally for logging.
We can use that, but there is no
Yeah,
hard and fast rule. We can use that
yeah.
also.
Log is like there is no rule for log. That is like either every step is going on, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Uh, do you have any knowledge of any framework like Spring Boot and any other thing, Spring MVC, anything?
Yeah, Springboard. Springboard. I have seen like some basics of Springboard.
Okay.
I was able to implement it, but conceptually, I'm somewhere lagging behind because I started with Springboard, like the REST services and a little bit of logging and in-memory authentication. Based on that, I made a small application, just a single monolithic application,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to do this kind of like I want to have a student, department, and lecturer, like these three separate services are trying to contact with each other. I'm trying to implement that, but sometimes when it comes to pure technical terms, I am unable to explain the things.
Okay.
uh, yeah, because I'm able to implement it, but not able to put the thing in a word.
Okay. So you can implement the things in Spring Boot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me just to create a simple API you want to create in Spring Boot? So what are the steps
Okay.
you will follow? You don't need to tell every step. You just can tell whatever the steps you know or you remember.
Okay. So, like, if you want to just to create let us suppose we are creating a like getting the info from the input. So there is some input coming for us. We are trying to save it in the database. So for this, we use a get mapping. This is one of the RESTful services we have. Uh, so to implement get mapping, so what all we need to have is first we need to be following the general standard structure of Spring Boot.
Hmm.
So standard structure of Spring Boot tells that you should have a separate entity, an entity which is similar to the form which you have in database.
Okay.
So entity, so that is what entity is, and that is used throughout the service or the Spring Boot application. And
Okay.
we should be having a controller and a service and a repository. So these three separate layers: controller, which is responsible for getting the request.
Okay.
So and service is where our business logic exists. So, whatever the manipulations we want to do, everything logic that lies in the service layer. Whereas the repository, so in that is the layer that communicates with the database.
Okay.
So we either write or read from the database. So this is the standard of a Spring Boot application. So following these standards, we will have a REST controller. We will have a at REST controller annotation that we'll be using in the controller class, because there we have a input. There we are actually contacting an endpoint.
Hmm.
We are either giving or taking data, but a contact with endpoint is happening there. So
Hmm.
for that purpose, we are going to use at the rate REST controller. And in that, as we are trying to get data, we have another annotation called as get mapping.
Hmm.
So with get mapping, we can get data from the endpoint. So whatever they are giving it from our endpoint, we can get the data. Once we get the data, we can this will not be complex. Once the data is received, we can simply call the service layer object to just transfer this data to the service layer. If we have any modification in that layer, we do the modification. If you do not have any modification, just save it. We will just send the same data to repository layer by calling the repository object. In the repository layer, as the Spring Boot basically, the Spring Boot in general, it says that no much implementation for the developer. Rest all the things I will take care.
Okay.
So in such a way, Spring Boot gave us we have JPA repository, which basically provides everything that we need with the database without even using a query. We can also use the CRUD repository if we are just using the Spring Boot application for CRUD operations, the create, retrieve, update, and
Okay.
delete kind of operation.
Yeah.
For that, we can use simply CRUD, because JPA is a bigger class. So in a real world case, it might take a little bit complex time to load it and evaluate the classes and everything. If you use CRUD repository, it will be lightweight. The application will be lightweight. So we can use CRUD repository, and in that we have a default. This is the save or create or delete or update. These are default methods that are provided. They themselves develop the, like, they in turn they act as a query, SQL query. Here there is no SQL query. In Java, we use the concept of Hibernate. The Hibernate is a ORM tool, so object relational mapping tool. So Hibernate separately has a language. It has inbuilt. It works on its own language, that is HQL, Hibernate query language. So based on that, to be very simplistic in nature, they gave the Spring Boot application gave us with all these methods.
Okay, so
The save method.
Yeah, is it mandatory to use Hibernate with Spring Boot?
It is not like mandatory, but it is a very efficient way to use Hibernate, because it does not stress the developer to keep on using any queries or something like that. Where if there is a if you see in Spring application, even in Java servlet pages we used to use before, JSPs and servlets. Even in that, if you want to communicate, we use JDBC connections. In JDBC connections, we need to write every statement. We should create the connection between database and write the statement, execute it, and at the end we need to end the connection with database.
Okay.
So if we have these many line of codes, there is possibility of human error.
Okay.
There is always a possibility of human error. So reducing that human error is one of the specialty of Spring Boot, and that is provided with respect to Hibernate. So with using not only Hibernate, any ORM tool does the same thing. It directly maps our object with the table. So we don't need to do anything, even while creating also.
But
in the entity,
that is the
yes.
Yeah, that is the feature of Hibernate, not Spring or Spring Boot. Mapping the object with a table, that is the feature of Hibernate. I mean, if you are using some other framework apart from Spring Boot, if you are using simply Spring Core, and then uses Hibernate as well, so you can get that feature in that place as well.
Okay. So we can also use JPA. JPA also provides the same thing. Is a specification, and these kind of Hibernate or whatever these are implementations of that JPA.
Correct. And any other language Hibernate uses internally? You already said that it uses HQL. Do you know any other language which the Hibernate uses, or?
No, I don't know.
Okay. So can you use your normal queries with Hibernate if you are using HQL, and suppose you have some queries which will run very well with MySQL, and now you want to run those queries with Hibernate. So can you do that?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Like we can just have a like if you are using MySQL or something, we can just have that MySQL driver, and then we can implement anything. I think there is one.
Yeah, you can run native queries. You call them native queries, and you can run them easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there is one thing they use. I think it is called session or something. With that, they will try to create something. I am unable to get it at this time, but session, and then they will use it is same as what we do in JDBC. Like in JDBC, we have statement like like that. In here also we have. I think it is create query or something like that. We will use that, and we can have our own queries also.
Okay.
As a string format, we can send it.
Correct.